We often say it takes some distance to figure out why the market made a certain move on a certain day, that in the moment you really can't tell what was going on, but with some distance we get a clearer picture. Well, Monday, when we rallied on Monday, the news was that it was based on positive drug trials for this stock called Moderna, a biotech stock. And indeed, if we pull up the chart for Moderna, symbol MRNA, we can see the big rally, which basically reached its height before the open on Monday. And that just that pre-opening action, the narrative was that this pulled the market up, just this move here in Moderna. But what we can see from the chart as we gain some distance here, we can see that that was the high before the open in this, and it's been kind of a sell the news story ever since, which we don't have too many days data, but it's been a sell the news story. If we check out another one of these vaccination virus sort of stocks, we've got GILD, and look at how much this one has sold off since their drug was touted as a possible cure for the coronavirus. And so I was thinking maybe that we could overlay just the S&P over this and see what it looks like here. You'll remember that Gilead had their drug remdesivir, which apparently lessens the symptoms as someone is recovering from the virus. But we've seen since it was making news headlines, it's been a fade. You know, the stock has moved lower since then. And a similar case with Moderna. I thought it would be interesting to just overlay for a second the S&P on this and see what we get. So compare with SPX. And let's see what this shows us here. I think we just want to look on it just for like the last couple of days. So we see here certainly correlation between the two that day where everybody was talking about this was pulling the market higher. But we see although we have a similar gap up in the S&P, Moderna immediately starts giving back while the S&P moves higher. Now, this next day, we saw, of course, on the close yesterday, we talked about already a little bit of a sell-off, and we see Moderna going lower. But, you know, the market changes what it's focused on, and it may have used this for a signal to rally, but it appears that whereas Moderna starts to sell off, the market has continued its march higher. So it can be interesting to look after and see if what they thought was the reason for the market rallying or selling off one day, actually, if there's evidence of that as we move into the future. Kind of an interesting little thing here, but I would say if you're looking to trade some of these virus drugs, to be quite careful. And in fact, there seems to be more evidence that it is a better trade to actually fade these when they are most in the news, because we can see this, at least so far, we only have 2 days of data, but the peak so far a couple days ago, and certainly there's evidence from GILD that that jumping into this after the news has broken that this might be a cure has not worked out. Look at this down move since basically the 1st of May in GILD. Notable today that oil is back to 32 and change. Really dramatic rally in back in oil. This has been explained in the media a lot by people saying, well, as the United States gets back to work, there's more demand for gasoline because people are moving about much more. But really dramatic rally from, what did we have, $6? Actually, what did it get down to? -34 in one of the futures. But an astounding comeback in oil. And if we look at our oil products, certainly, even though we've talked about UCO and USO, underperforming, they certainly have rallied with this big up move in oil. So tricky stuff to trade out there. I think it is actually just it's good news for those companies that were depending on the oil price to pay their bills. And we're back in a more reasonable range for oil, which I don't think would be too surprising to anybody as we check that out. Also, gold continues to be very strong. Gold being a favorite of many traders recently as volatility in the gold products. I believe it's been a bit higher than usual. Let's take a look here at volatility for a second. And what I'm doing is I'm going into my Thinkorswim and Analyze tab for gold futures here. And I'm going to go to today's option statistics. And so showing a range in volatility of between, very low and about 66. Right now in the 20s. So actually, volatility in gold options is actually pretty low right now. Maybe that makes sense since we are at kind of the higher end of the range here. Let me erase. We don't need to compare this to the S&P, I don't think. But if we move way back in time, let me see if I can pull up a historical gold chart, because I want to show you how high what the all-time high was here, if I can pull that up. Let's take a look here. All right, so here's a 100-year chart of gold. All right, here is a 100-year chart, and we can see here the high of 2100 and change that was back in 1980, and then the high that I'm thinking of, which is 1900 and change back just a couple years ago. Let's see. Looks like around 2012. And, it looks like we are poised to actually take out that high and move higher as gold continues to rally. And if you watch my friend Sal's show, he talks about gold as being one of his favorite trading vehicles at the time. I believe he was putting iron condors on in gold. So certainly something to look at. I used to be a bit of a gold bug. I used to buy gold and silver coins to keep hidden under my bed, for the zombie apocalypse and all that. So in fact, my YouTube channel initially was about coins and coin collecting. Certainly, there was a big rally for a while in silver, and a lot of people that were stacking silver and a lot of YouTubers that were stacking silver made a decent amount of money a few years ago, but then the silver faded for such a long time. But now gold and silver back and building, and it kind of makes sense with us printing so much money and so much more debt being issued during the pandemic that these would take off a little bit. Certainly the initial sell-off in the market, we did not see gold really spiking as people rushed to get cash any way they could. Gold went lower along with Bitcoin, and pretty much any asset that could be turned into cash got dumped in the initial sell-off. However, now that the market has recovered a little bit, we see gold gold spiking to the upside as the value of each dollar comes into question. So some thoughts on different things to trade. Tesla continues its march higher. We'll see if Tesla is able to take out recent highs soon. Of course, why am I not transitioning? Of course, Elon Musk has been in the news a lot lately. There we go. Wanting to reopen and kind of fighting with California. I know that Colorado, I believe the governor of Colorado was tweeting at Elon Musk trying to get him to move his operations to Colorado. And I believe that there is a SpaceX mission pending. Let's see if I can find it on here. I know it was on here a couple days ago. Here we go. All right, so SpaceX. Now, this isn't directly related to Tesla, but it, of course, all involves the mystique of Elon Musk. Here we go. NASA has a big week ahead as the first time in almost a decade Americans will launch into space an American-built rocket from American soil. In a launch that NASA and SpaceX have been working on for years, a commercially built and operating American rocket will carry astronauts to the International Space Station. So we'll see if this actually goes ahead. But, you know, always exciting to think about space and space exploration. I'm somewhat of a space cadet myself at heart, and so always interested to check out what's going on and to imagine life in outer space and flying around in outer space. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's take a look at other news headlines here under Drudge Report as we head towards the open. Let's see. Trump allies lined up doctors to prescribe rapid reopening. So the administration continues to push reopening. And of course, there is, this is kind of divided among partisan lines, it appears. What else do we have going on? New outbreak, church forced to reclose. It's hard to keep on top of all this virus information. It's continuing stream of bad news every day, but there doesn't seem to be any news story out here that's kind of taking over the news cycle at the moment here. So we'll move on to the day, and let's see if this rally continues as we enter the trading day on a Wednesday post-VIX expiration. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.